The girl was the empire's noble princess, but her mother saw her as lowly trash. Not only did she constantly beat and abuse her, she even ended her life with a single stab. All because the princess had golden hair and brilliant blue eyes. She was clearly a descendant of the emperor from a side branch, yet she possessed the traits of the legitimate royal line. This made her mother, the emperor's favorite concubine, despise her utterly, doting only on her twin brother who had the same red hair and crimson eyes. The little princess didn't understand why her mother hated her so much. Even her father, the emperor, had never come to see her. Craving her parents' love, the little princess lived a humble and cautious life. On her 18th birthday, she thought she could finally win her mother's affection. But what greeted her was being stabbed through the body with a sharp blade by her own mother. Luana awoke from the nightmare with a start. Before she could fully come to her senses, the maid beside her snapped, "I've been calling you forever, and you wouldn't wake up. Today is Prince Louis's birthday. If you don't want to be woken up by Lady Lilia, you'd better stay put." With that, she slammed the door and left. Luana looked at the familiar room decor. Looking at her own small, delicate hands, she realized she was only a child. With a long 10 years, she had just experienced just a dream. Just then, a strange sense of déjà vu washed over her. It felt as if her mother would suddenly burst through the door, furiously scolding her for ruining her brother's birthday cake. And things happened just as she had foreseen. Her small body was dragged by her mother, and she was punished with no food for 10 days. But she had dreamed of this. It was actually the maid who ruined the cake, but blamed it on her. In an instant, a chill ran down Luana's spine. Could that dream have been a prophecy? If so, would the end of the dream, her tragic death at her mother's hands, also come true? The thought terrified her, but her mother slapped her across the face. The woman looked down at her arrogantly. "I'll only love you if you're obedient, won't I?" She turned and left, locking the girl in the room. During the days of her confinement, Luana replayed the long dream in her mind. Although the details were blurry, the main plot points were strikingly similar. At the same time, she also figured out the reason for her mother's constant disgust. It was because her golden hair and blue eyes bore no resemblance to her mother's. She didn't even look like her father. Instead, she looked exactly like the empress, who possessed the legitimate bloodline. But due to feudal tradition, the throne could only be passed to a male heir, not a female. Although the current empress was the heir of the legitimate bloodline, she could only marry a prince from a side branch to continue the line by giving birth to a crown prince. Luana suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. If that was truly a prophetic dream, there was only one person who could save her from her deadly fate, and that was the empress. She had to find her. Despite being the child of a concubine, she possessed the bloodline traits of the legitimate empress. The little princess with golden hair and blue eyes was despised by her mother for this reason. On her 18th birthday, her own mother even ended her life. Having dreamed of her own future, Luana decided to save herself. She had to find the empress, the legitimate heir. Her golden hair and blue eyes were the best proof. The features her mother had despised so much had now become her trump card for survival. She desperately pounded on the locked door of her room. Unexpectedly, the door suddenly opened. Luana, who had fallen to the ground, hadn't even caught her breath when a sudden clamor of voices was heard. To avoid being discovered by the maids, Luana quickly hid behind the curtains. Her hair color was too conspicuous. If she ran out rashly, she would definitely be spotted. She simply wrapped her body in the dusty curtain and escaped for the princess's palace that had imprisoned her for the first time. But being so small, she didn't know the way to the empress's palace and wandered into a maze made of green plants. She walked with her head down for who knows how long when she detected the faint scent of roses. Luana froze in place, terrified. This was her mother's scent. Had her mother discovered her escape? Just as she was at a loss, a silver-haired boy from behind covered her mouth and led her to hide in a corner. A moment later, her mother walked past. However, she was looking for her son, Louis. Despite being twin siblings, Luana and Louis's lives were worlds apart. Her brother, who inherited their mother's red hair and crimson eyes, was thoroughly spoiled, while Luana struggled to survive amidst constant beatings and verbal abuse. "Louis, let's go back. Everyone is waiting for you," the star of the show. Her mother was so gentle and doting towards her brother. This was something Luana had never experienced. She longed for her mother's love too. The more the girl thought about it, the more wronged she felt, and tears began to fall uncontrollably. This left the silver-haired boy behind her at a loss. "That I'm sorry. Did I scare you?" he stammered, trying to explain. But the girl only cried harder. The boy gently forced the girl to look at him, patting her back and teaching her to breathe deeply. Luana gradually calmed down. Looking at the boy's bright smile, an image flashed through her mind. This person had appeared in her dream. Despite being twins, the prince with red hair and crimson eyes was doted on, while his sister, the princess with golden hair and blue eyes, lived like trash. Having learned in her dream that she would die at her mother's hands in the future, Luana desperately escaped the palace that imprisoned her, only to run into a familiar-looking, silver-haired boy. This person had appeared in her dream. Luana instantly became alert and asked him what his relationship was with the two people from before. The boy looked troubled. It turned out he had come to attend the birthday party, but his parents had told him to get on good terms with the second prince. He had planned to leave after giving a gift to the princess, but he hadn't even seen the princess. The boy looked at the girl wrapped in a curtain, thinking she was a young lady who had also snuck out because she disliked parties. Luana asked him why he wanted to see the princess. Because the empress specially invited all the nobles to attend. But the princess, the guest of honor, didn't show up. Isn't that strange? She should at least come out to receive everyone's blessings. Luana, who had never celebrated a birthday, only then realized it was her brother's birthday. That meant it was her birthday too. Thinking of this, she unconsciously said, "I think it's my birthday today too." The boy was slightly taken aback. What a coincidence. "In that case, this gift is for you." The boy went ahead and placed a bracelet on the girl's wrist. Afraid the girl would feel burdened, he explained, "My parents have already prepared a gift for the princess. Think of this as my own gift to you. After all, it's your birthday today. Just pretend this gift was meant for you all along. Happy birthday." Watching the boy's retreating figure, Luana felt a warmth in her heart. "Actually, your gift has already reached its owner. Thank you." She noticed the family crest on the boy's button, a small flower on a shield. "If I ever see you again, I will definitely ask for your name." Meanwhile, Crown Prince Ludwin was in a very bad mood. His subordinate was trying to persuade him to make an appearance at the birthday party for the second prince and the little princess. Even if he hated Lady Lilia, those two children were still his half-brother and sister. Brother and sister. Ludwin scoffed. He utterly despised that woman and her two children. Ever since that woman appeared, his father had become infatuated with her beauty, neglected his state duties, and abandoned him and his mother. How could he not hate her when his father spent all his time with her? But his subordinate told him the princess had golden hair and blue eyes, the symbol of a legitimate heir. That's absurd. The emperor had brown hair and dark eyes, and the concubine had red hair and crimson eyes. How could they possibly have a child with golden hair and blue eyes? They should have abolished that rotten rule long ago. It says a woman cannot inherit the throne, but right now, the empress is the one handling all government affairs. Just because she's a woman, she can't be the ruler. It's ridiculous. Ludwin made up his mind. When he ascended the throne, he would definitely get rid of this broken law. Just then, a noise came from the nearby bushes. The two looked closely. A dirty little child peeked out from the bushes. To save her own life, she decided she would no longer endure her mother's abuse. But just as she finally escaped the palace that imprisoned her, she unexpectedly ran into her half-brother, Crown Prince Ludwin. Luana was greatly disappointed. Why did she have to run into him here? She had heard from the maids that the Crown Prince despised everyone associated with her mother. Didn't that mean she had just walked into the line of fire? Ludwin was relieved to see it was just a child. But why did she have the golden hair and blue eyes unique to the royal family? Ludwin glanced towards Lilia's palace in the distance. Could the rumors be true? Does Lilia's daughter really have the traits of the legitimate bloodline? The man sighed, pressing his forehead. He leaned in close to the girl. "Luana, are you playing games with me? What are you doing here?" His subordinate, Arden, was very surprised. This child was the princess? Shouldn't she be celebrating her birthday? But the child was dressed in rags. Her shoes didn't fit, and she looked terrified and uneasy. Faced with the crown prince's questioning, Luana couldn't worry about anything else. She gathered her courage. "I want to see Her Majesty, the Empress." Of course, Ludwin wouldn't agree. His attitude was cold as he refused her directly, but then he saw Arden already shielding Luana. This baffled Ludwin. "That weren't you tricked by that woman before? Why are you protecting her daughter?" Arden couldn't bear to see the girl in such a pitiful state. Suddenly, their argument was interrupted by a rumbling sound. The girl was about to faint from hunger. She forced herself to say, "I hate my mother," before fainting into Arden's arms. Ludwin was a loss. I didn't mean to scare her into fainting. Let's just send her back to Lilia. He didn't want to have anything to do with that woman. But then Arden noticed something unusual about the girl. Her overly thin body was covered in wounds and bruises. Ludwin was stunned. They were both Lilia's children. One was enjoying a grand birthday party, while the other was being abused and forced to flee for her life. Such blatant favoritism was incomprehensible. When he had seen the second prince before, he felt no kinship because the boy had the same red hair and crimson eyes as his mother. But looking at the little princess with the same golden hair and blue eyes as himself, Ludwin didn't dislike her. He even felt a strange sense of closeness. Luana struggled to open her eyes. Looking at the crown prince holding her, she wondered, where is he taking me? The doctor seems to have discovered an incredible secret. The 18-year-old crown prince actually has a 5-year-old illegitimate daughter. Just a moment ago, Crown Prince Ludwin had brought Luana back to his palace. The maid, Maria, had to confirm several times before she believed this was the concubine Lilia's daughter. Although they had all been harmed by Lilia, she felt no ill will towards the princess. After all, the child was innocent. This made Ludwin feel a bit guilty. Having the child of that wicked woman appear before you already made him feel very guilty. But why don't any of you mind? Just then, the doctor, Medico, finally arrived. After an examination, he found that apart from many wounds on her body, there were no major problems. It was likely just malnutrition. Malnutrition? A child who grew up in the imperial palace was actually malnourished. Ludwin wondered what this child had been through. But Medico was more concerned about who this child was. He had just noticed that the child's hair color was identical to the crown prince's. Could it be that this is your highness's? Ludwin felt his skin crawl under the doctor's gaze. Medico reassured him. If her constitution is like the crown prince's, with proper care, she'll recover quickly. Ludwin was speechless. What does that have to do with me? Arden, standing beside them, instantly understood Medico's meaning and tried to hint frantically with his eyes. But the doctor continued on his own. Does Her Majesty the Empress know about this? But Ludwin hadn't dared to tell his mother yet. Every year at this time, his mother would mourn her deceased sister. If he brought Luana to see her now, it would surely sadden his mother. Arden asked about the girl's condition. He felt the child was much smaller than her peers. She is a bit smaller than a 4 or 5-year-old, but there's no need to worry too much. What are you talking about? This child is already 8 years old. Medico was flabbergasted. Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Your child is already this old. Seeing the situation getting out of control, Arden quickly explained, this is the Crown Prince's sister, Luana. The princess? Medico finally realized. This child was Lilia's daughter. What else? What on earth were you thinking? How old am I? How could I have a child this big? She looks like she's only 4 or 5. It's normal for me to misunderstand. This left Ludwin very confused. Every year, his mother gave Lilia so much money for child support. How could she still raise a child to be like this? She probably spent all the money on her son, hiring foreign knights for lessons, inviting academy professors, and even royal tutors to teach her son, while abusing her daughter to the point of malnutrition. He absolutely could not send this child back now. Now let's find someone to take care of her first. Maria eagerly volunteered. Let me do it. But Maria and Arden had both been harmed by that wicked woman. Ludwin couldn't bear it. Seeing that his companions all approved of this arrangement, he had no choice but to agree. As the others dispersed, Luana's consciousness gradually returned. Feeling the soft touch beneath her, she woke with a start. Where is this place? The girl woke up and immediately started crying. Looking at the unfamiliar, luxurious room, she knew she was finally safe, having escaped the clutches of her monstrous mother. Luana looked around curiously, recalling that she had seen the crown prince before fainting. Could it be that he saved me? She pushed open the room's door. The magnificent, glittering hall before her left the girl in awe. She had just noticed the new dress she was wearing, when a startled cry made her stumble and fall. Luckily, a pair of large hands caught her in time. The person bowed in apology. Hello, Your Highness the Princess. I am Maria, the Crown Prince's exclusive maid. From now on, I will be responsible for taking care of you." But Luana, who had never been treated with gentleness, misunderstood her meaning. "The Crown Prince's maid is going to be responsible for me? Did he kidnap me?" The girl panicked and began to beg for mercy. Little did she know, the Crown Prince himself was standing right behind her, his expression grim. "What kind of person do you take me for to say such a thing?" Luana was so scared her legs went weak. She tightly gripped the man's hem, begging him to spare her life. The girl's terrified expression took Ludwin aback. He immediately knelt down and apologized to the girl that "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you." Luana was stunned. The Crown Prince, known for being fearsome, was actually apologizing to her. Just then, her stomach rumbled in protest. The next second, Ludwin directly picked up the girl and took her to eat. He even asked her what she wanted to eat. Luana, who had only ever eaten leftovers, didn't even know the names of any dishes. She could only recall something sweet she had eaten in her dream. "Sweet? Do you want to eat dessert?" Luana didn't know if it was dessert. Perhaps the immense fear of being killed by her mother only allowed fleeting, blurry memories to flash by. The face of the person who gave her dessert in the dream was unclear, but her body is still very weak. She can't eat sweets. Ludwin asked if she wanted to drink some soup she liked. Luana didn't dare to ask for anything. Any soup will do. Ludwin placed her on a chair, but the little girl's head could only just reach the tabletop. As she sat there anxiously, her body was suddenly lifted. The next second, the Crown Prince was actually holding her and personally feeding her. This made Luana's whole body stiffen, but she was quickly captivated by the delicious taste in her mouth. Isn't soup always cold and tasteless? Why is the soup here hot? And there are so many ingredients in it. Ludwin watched the girl gobble down her food, feeling heartbroken. It was just ordinary vegetable soup, yet she drank it with such relish. Luana cautiously asked, "May I have another bowl?" Only then did Ludwin realize she had finished it all. Thinking the Crown Prince wouldn't agree, Luana quickly bowed her head in apology, explaining that it was her first time drinking this kind of soup, which was why she drank it so fast. Ludwin was stunned. Vegetable soup was a common dish for ordinary people. How could a princess have never even had this? Ludwin suppressed his anger and made a pinky promise with Luana, vowing to let her drink hot cocoa tomorrow. This was the first time the little princess had felt warmth and care. Looking at the girl's innocent smile, Ludwin also felt emotional. "Even if we only share half our blood, she is still my sister." The girl was the daughter of his enemy, but the Crown Prince cared for her exceptionally, although they were only half-siblings. After learning about the inhuman torture the girl had suffered, he decided to protect this little sister well. After the meal, Ludwin picked Luana up in his arms. The girl thought he was going to send her back to her vicious mother. But earlier, Ludwin had already gone to her palace to see it. It was like a prison, not a place for a person to live, that you're not going back to that garbage dump. From now on, this is your room. The magnificent, splendid bedroom almost blinded Luana. She couldn't believe the Crown Prince had prepared this for her. At this moment, the man was bursting with a sense of responsibility. "Hey, your older brother, I won't abandon my little sister. Although we only share half our blood, you are, after all, a member of the royal family. As long as you're willing, you can stay here forever." Luana didn't understand why the Crown Prince was so good to her, so good that she couldn't help but want to rely on him. After settling Luana in, Ludwin went out and ran into Arden. Arden, the guard knight, had returned after his shift. When he saw how gentle and considerate Ludwin was towards the little princess, he thought, as expected of my Crown Prince. But Ludwin felt very guilty. Because of that wicked woman's schemes, Maria and Arden had lost their father. He himself had lost a respected teacher. Although Luana was his sister, to them, she was the daughter of their enemy. He swore he would get revenge. Although she had escaped her mother's clutches, Luana still habitually woke from her nightmares with a start. Only this time, there was no scolding from her mother, but rather sweet and delicious hot cocoa from Maria. The Crown Prince had personally delivered it early in the morning, just to fulfill his promise to the girl from yesterday. But Luana felt very ashamed. The Crown Prince hated everything about her mother, so why was he so good to her? In this palace, this was the second time she had felt kindness from others. She would consider it a debt of gratitude and would surely repay them in the future. As they talked, the two gradually became familiar. Maria started complaining to Luana about the Crown Prince. His Highness was so dull as a child, not cute at all, but he actually has such an adorable sister like you. Luana saw that things were not looking good. Just as she was about to warn her, the crown prince appeared behind them with a grim expression. "So this is what my exclusive maid thinks of me." She was an imperial princess, yet she had been abused by her own mother since birth. Having never felt warmth, it wasn't until she met her half-brother, the crown prince, that she experienced the feeling of being cherished for the first time. Suddenly, a large stuffed rabbit fell from the sky and landed on Luana. It turned out to be a birthday present from Arden. Although yesterday's birthday had passed, for the princess, this was the very first birthday gift that was completely and truly hers. At this moment, she was incredibly happy. The bracelet that slipped from her wrist caught Ludwin's attention. Such an exquisite item surely wasn't a gift from Lilia. He turned and ordered Arden to investigate the bracelet's origin. The girl, immersed in joy, hugged the rabbit tightly, yet couldn't help but wonder, if Mother could be as warm as them, what would I be like? At this thought, all her grievances poured out and tears flowed uncontrollably. The years of torment made her doubt her future. Can I also have happiness? Under the influence of gentle comfort and chocolate, Luana finally fell into a deep sleep. This was thanks to Arden, who was also an older brother. He was very good with children, but we can't use chocolate to lull her to sleep every time. However, none of them had much experience in childcare. Maria suggested calling for a nanny, but Ludwin and Arden stopped her at the same time. If the nanny found out, she would definitely report it to the Empress. And many years ago, around this time, their mother was devastated by her sister's death and could no longer bear children. She became particularly fond of little girls, doting on her niece, Selena. If their mother learned of Luana's tragic experience, her mental state would surely be stimulated. Moreover, once Luana's situation became known, while she would gain everyone's sympathy, she would also face ridicule for having only a side-branch bloodline. After all, she was Lilia's biological daughter and would surely be returned to her birth mother. At that time, what awaited her would certainly be even more brutal abuse. It's better to report to the Empress in a few days. In the following days, under Maria's careful care, Luana's health recovered considerably. It was just that her chocolate was confiscated, which she missed dearly. Maria was serving Luana her meal when she suddenly remembered something and had to leave for a moment, telling Luana to ring the bell if she needed anything. But this put the girl in a difficult position. She was afraid of calling other people. Every time she went to the dining hall before, the gazes of the other maids made her feel uneasy, surprise, curiosity, and even contempt. Everyone whispered, "Lilia's daughter, why is she living in the crown prince's palace?" So she could only wait obediently for Maria to return. Just then, Arden appeared stealthily at the door. Confirming Maria wasn't there, he felt relieved. The item Arden brought made the girl's eyes light up. It was chocolate. The rumored cold and ruthless crown prince had actually become a super doting brother. Luxurious rooms and delicious meals were all arranged. No matter where he went, he held his sister in his arms. He was even afraid his sister would misunderstand. So even when busy with work, he would send someone to tell her, "It's not that brother doesn't love you. I'm just too busy with official duties to come see you." Luana didn't mind at all because she used to only see her mother once a week or even once a month. Just then, Maria suddenly returned. Oh no, she was caught eating chocolate. But Maria broke into a brilliant smile. She had brought many sweets and pastries. It turned out Luana's health had recovered well, and the doctor had allowed her to eat snacks. The little princess finally got to eat the delicacies she had been craving. The sweet taste enveloped her mouth as if she were in heaven. But Ludwin suddenly appeared from behind, scaring Luana into a coughing fit. Maria glared at him. "Look, you've scared the child." Luana puffed her cheeks. "Could you please knock before you come in next time?" Seeing his sister being so cute, he really wanted to tease her. Ludwin teased, "This is my palace. If you ask me again respectfully, I might consider it." Arden, standing nearby, handed Luana a small gift. "This is from my sister." Luana held the gift, unable to put it down. Watching her joyful expression, Ludwin mused. The Grand Princess of the Empire receives a small trinket and acts as happy as if she's been given the whole world. He teased that she was too easy to please. Luana was not happy to hear that, and subconsciously retorted, "That's too mean." As soon as she said it, she realized he might get angry. Just as she was about to apologize, Ludwin was the first to admit his fault for teasing his sister like that. He also reminded her that her body had just recovered and she shouldn't eat too many sweets. Luana recalled their first meeting. Although she was Lilia's daughter, the crown prince seemed to have always been very good to her. Could it be that he doesn't hate me? To test her theory, she deliberately asked for another piece of chocolate cake. Although Ludwin was reluctant, he still brought the cake to the girl. That's unbelievable. Arden even chimed in with an idea. He told Luana to close her eyes and open her mouth, and something unexpected would happen. Seeing his sister obediently do as she was told, Ludwin sighed in resignation. Who could resist this? He had no choice but to personally pick up a small piece of cake with a fork and feed it into his sister's mouth. What else could he do with his sister but spoil her? Just because the Empress's daughter was born, she latched onto the Countess's daughter, wanting to take her place. She used the Empress's grief for her daughter to constantly seek attention, but she was too stupid and foolish. She was so presumptuous as to publicly tear open the Empress's old wounds. The Empress's mood had improved these past few days. Crown Prince Ludwin planned to tell his mother about Luana's situation, but he ran into the Countess in the Empress's palace. Thinking her daughter had secured the Empress's favor, the woman was getting ahead of herself. But she was warned by the Crown Prince, who despised them, to know her place. Don't get any foolish ideas. The woman couldn't hide her greedy nature. As long as the Empress continued to dote on her daughter, what could the Crown Prince do, even if he objected? Her daughter's future was set to be magnificent. She would absolutely not give up. When Ludwin saw the Empress, she was enjoying afternoon tea. The Empress was very happy to see her son. Ludwin wanted to speak to his mother alone and asked the Count's daughter, Selina, to leave. But the girl tugged on his cape. Let me listen too. I'm your sister, after all. Ludwin was shocked by her audacity. How insolent. I only have one sister, but she's already dead. At these words, the Crown Prince was instantly enraged. He shook off her hand and warned her not to think she could claim a connection to the royal family. Just because she had the Empress's favor, don't push her luck. The girl turned to the Empress for help. But the Empress, dropping her usual pleasant expression, coldly told her to get out. And she warned her that if she dared to be impertinent again, she would be dealt with. Although the Empress had suffered many hardships, she would never be broken. Even after the late emperor's passing and the current emperor's affair, she still held fast to her duty as the legitimate heir, governing the country with great order. Seeing his mother so strong, Ludwin finally felt relieved. He told his mother that Princess Luana was being beaten and abused by her mother, and that he had found her after she escaped the palace. Because of malnutrition, she was now being cared for in the Crown Prince's palace. The Empress was shocked to hear this, and because of Lilia's abuse towards her, the servants in the princess's palace also neglected her. That's why she was missing for several days without anyone noticing. The Empress immediately wanted to go see Luana. Although she wasn't her biological child, the Empress had gone to see her after she was born. After all, she looked so much like her own deceased daughter. Just one look at her had etched her image deep in her heart. Although the girl was the concubine's daughter, she bore a striking resemblance to the Empress's child who had died young. Whenever she saw this child, the Empress's pain from losing her daughter would be soothed. But for an Empress to frequently visit a concubine's child was an act that would always attract criticism. The Empress had no choice but to keep her distance from the girl. She never expected to learn years later that the girl was being tormented and abused by the concubine. The Empress wanted to go see her, but she hesitated, not daring to push open the door. Maria told her that Luana was doing very well now. She could eat and sleep well, and she especially loved sweets. The Crown Prince also said that every time he saw her, she was eating. It was as if she was born to eat, but she was still a little worried. As the Empress, she had failed to take good care of the children in the harem. It was her dereliction of duty. Will this child blame me? Seeing his mother's hesitation, Ludwin simply pushed the door open. If you're worried, just go in and see. But Luana was currently deep in dreamland. Looking at the girl's small frame, the Empress couldn't believe this was an 8-year-old child. How could Lilia be so cruel, even her own child? This broke the Empress's heart. Just then, the little princess turned over in her sleep, causing the Empress's outstretched hand to freeze in midair. She gently patted the girl, soothing her back into a deep sleep. In her office, the Empress summoned the chamberlain. She showed him the investigation report on Luana and the princess's palace. Although the funds allocated to the princess were sufficient, very little was actually spent on Luana. The rest had been squandered by Lilia. The chamberlain was shocked after reading the report. The empress stated that from now on, she would personally manage the princess's expenses. First, she would revoke Lilia's access. Ludwin reminded his mother that Lilia would surely come and cause a scene. But when it came to Luana, the empress would not back down this time. That if she comes to make trouble, tell her to come see me directly. There's no need to be merciful to a woman who is so cruel, even to her own child. Just then, the sound of light footsteps came from outside the door. It was Luana playing with Arden. The little princess woke up hungry and came looking for them herself. This made Ludwin feel like he was his sister's personal meal ticket. Since it was time for dinner anyway, Ludwin invited his mother to join them. Only then did Luana realize the empress was there. Just then, Luana suddenly thought, the empress is very merciful and won't harm me. But that doesn't mean she won't dislike me. What empress would like the daughter of a troublesome concubine? She should get down from the crown prince's arms immediately. The little princess tried to escape her monstrous mother's torment, had snuck out of the palace to seek the empress's protection. But when she actually met the empress, she got cold feet. What empress would like the daughter of a troublesome concubine? She struggled to get down from the crown prince's arms, but was carried all the way to the dining room. The empress could see that her sudden appearance had made Luana reserved. Ludwin reassured her, don't worry. This child won't lose her appetite just because someone else is here. And that was true. Luana was either eating or on her way to eat every day. A plate of delicious steak was placed in front of the girl, but Ludwin immediately pulled it in front of himself. The empress thought she was seeing things. The crown prince was actually cutting the meat for the princess. When did her son become so gentle? She heard that he had even personally lulled Luana to sleep before. The empress was even more surprised. He glared at his half-brother Louis and was very cold towards the count's daughter. Why was he so special towards Luana? Could it be because this child had the same golden hair and blue eyes as him? If my own child were still alive, she would be this age. Would she have been as cute as her? After the meal, just as Luana finished her dessert, Ludwin pushed his own portion in front of her. The empress also gave her portion to Luana. Though she said no, thank you, her hands obediently took it. This child loves to eat so much. I'm afraid she could be easily lured away with food. The empress asked her son, you haven't been starving her, have you? Ludwin cried foul. You have no idea how much this little one can eat. And when she starts eating, she forgets everyone else. As soon as he finished speaking, a spoon was held up to his mouth. It was the little princess inviting Ludwin to enjoy the dessert with her. The empress's expression hardened as she warned her son, a child's feelings can be hurt by your words. From now on, watch what you say in front of her. Don't bully Luana. Afraid that Ludwin wasn't taking good enough care of her, the empress proposed taking the little princess to live with her. She asked Luana, would you like to come live with me? She even tried to tempt her with delicious food. But Luana thought carefully. If she wanted to deal with her mother, staying with the empress would certainly be better than staying with the crown prince. But thinking of the care the crown prince, Arden, and Maria had shown her these past few days, Luana decided to stay. The empress respected her choice. Just then, Maria suddenly entered to report. She hesitated, glancing at Luana. Luana keenly sensed it might be related to her mother. Seeing Ludwin about to take her away, she pleaded, can I listen too? But not wanting Luana to be involved in the adults' disputes, the crown prince made up an excuse and carried her away. Maria said, the maids from the princess's palace are searching everywhere for her highness. They haven't dared to tell Lilia about the princess's disappearance yet. They're just searching quietly on their own. These deceitful servants are utterly despicable. As the empress was leaving, she asked Maria what flavor of dessert the princess liked. Although the girl was the concubine's daughter, she received the empress's boundless affection. After learning that Luana liked sweets, the empress sent over a table full of a wide variety of desserts. Luana was shocked. Is all this for me? Can I really accept so many gifts? Among them was an exquisitely packaged jar of candy. This was a delicacy Luana had never tasted before. The feeling of being enveloped in melting sweetness was an incredible surprise to her. Even the candy jar was made of expensive crystal. Luana was bewildered. Why was the empress being so good to her? She was stunned by this sudden affection, afraid that if she did anything wrong, this kindness would immediately disappear. If you eat them happily, the empress will be very pleased. In the past, she had to go to great lengths to please her mother just to avoid a beating. Now, just by eating with enjoyment, the empress would be happy. She hesitated and asked again, "But I can't do anything for her. Can I really accept these things?" The girl's cautious demeanor pained Maria. A child your age should just accept gifts. If you really feel uneasy, you can go and thank the empress. That was a good idea. But then Luana thought, His Highness the Crown Prince has also been especially good to me these days. If I only thank the empress and ignore the crown prince, wouldn't that be a bit inappropriate? After all, they are both very good people, especially the crown prince. He's practically an angel. I'm afraid he's been taken advantage of many times because he's too kind. Maria was speechless. How strange. The crown prince was being praised as a good little boy. She's still too naive. How could a cold and ruthless person like him ever be taken advantage of? Luana felt that she was just a princess in name only. Her mother was so troublesome. Why didn't the empress and the crown prince hate her? They even had Maria, a count's daughter, take care of her. But Maria said she was doing it willingly. Anyone who meets your highness the princess would love you. It is my honor to serve you. As the second highest ranking woman in the empire, you must become more confident. Even your mother, Lilia, does not have a status as high as yours. So you must cheer up. If you feel uneasy about it, let's bake some cookies to give them as a thank you gift. Freshly baked cookies are fragrant and crispy. They will definitely like them. But Luana remembered that the crown prince doesn't eat cookies. Maria scooped up the little princess. Then let's give them to the empress first. Luana's heart filled with joy. Before, she had always been the one receiving kindness from others. Now she could do something to repay them. I must make delicious cookies to express my gratitude. Since escaping her mother's clutches, the little princess had been living a life of being doted on by the crown prince. To thank them for their kindness, Luana decided to personally bake cookies to give to them. But even though she followed Maria's demonstration step by step, how did the bear-shaped cookies turn into an unknown species in her hands? Luana herself was disgusted. The empress and the crown prince probably wouldn't eat cookies like these. But Maria told her the empress would definitely love them. After all, seeing these would remind the empress of the cookies the crown prince made when he was little. Luana thought she was just trying to comfort her. Just then, she suddenly remembered there was one more person she had to thank. When Luana gathered the courage to give the cookies to Arden, Arden was overjoyed. Her Highness the Princess personally made cookies for me. And they're super cute raccoon cookies, too. Actually, they're bear cookies. Seeing Arden's genuine happiness, Luana felt incredibly satisfied. Just then, the crown prince suddenly appeared. Arden hurriedly showed off to him. These are the cookies Her Highness the Princess made for me. Aren't they cute? The crown prince couldn't smile because he hadn't received any. Ignoring Arden's praises that lauded the cookies to the heavens, he said coldly, "No, they're not cute." Luana thought to herself, "I knew it. They're no good." Maria laughed. How could that be? They look just like the ones His Highness the Crown Prince used to make. What? At these words, both of them were shocked. The Crown Prince's dark past was mercilessly exposed. I made them as badly as he did. She made them as badly as I did. The Crown Prince didn't want to admit his cookies were ugly. He rephrased his evaluation of Luana's cookies. Looking closely, they're actually not bad. It seems she has some talent. Luana was in complete awe of Maria. With just one sentence, she could make the crown prince change his tune and praise her. Luana also stuck her neck out and said she would do better than her brother. The word brother that slipped out made the crown prince freeze. You just call me brother? Only then did Luana realize her slip of the tongue. What should I do? Will he think I'm being presumptuous? What if he denies it? Luana wanted to apologize, but the feeling of grievance welling up inside her made her start to sniffle. Just then, she was pulled into a warm embrace. The crown prince's gentle voice sounded, "You are my little sister." Everyone was so kind. Surrounded by warmth, the little princess gradually fell asleep. Even in her sleep, she held onto the crown prince's hand, unwilling to let go. Looking at the sleeping girl, he thought, even though she is Lilia's daughter, from the first moment I saw her, I felt something different, as if she really is my own sister. In her dream, Luana was still worried that her identity as a concubine's daughter would cause the crown prince to despise her. It wasn't until the crown prince affirmed, "I will stay by your side," that she revealed a child's sweet smile. The next day, Luana opened her eyes to see the crown prince lying on the bed with her. The girl woke up, opened her eyes, and saw her half-brother sleeping beside her. After the shock, she quickly closed her eyes and pretended to be asleep, occasionally stealing a glance. She marveled again at how identical their hair colors were. But then the crown prince suddenly opened his eyes. Luana was so startled she cried out. The crown prince teased her. "Your acting is too obvious. If you want to look at me, just say so. Why be so sneaky? I wonder who you get that habit from." As soon as he said it, Maria knew this was bad. The crown prince also realized that his words might remind Luana of her mother and all the bad experiences. He quickly apologized to Luana. But the girl wasn't sad. Instead, she said she took after the crown prince. "You knew everything, but were pretending to be asleep too, weren't you?" Seeing that Luana wasn't upset, the crown prince breathed a sigh of relief and admitted she was like him. Then he started looking around the room, asking, "Where's mine?" Luana was confused. Maria reminded her that the crown prince was looking for his cookies. How could he not have a share of the cookies Luana made herself yesterday? But when he learned that there really wasn't a portion for him, he was so angry he slammed the door and left. However, Luana had already secretly made up her mind. She would continue to work hard to repay the crown prince and everyone else. At this time, Count Chalt was pleading with the Empress. Ever since his daughter was punished by the Empress for her impertinence, he hadn't had a chance to enter the palace again. He begged the Empress to forgive Selena this once. After all, she's still just a child. The Empress also felt that treating a child so harshly was a bit too severe, so she allowed her to enter the palace at noon to meet with her. Selena joyfully threw herself into the Empress's arms, crying and apologizing while expressing her longing for the Empress. But ever since the Empress had met Luana, she would always think of her whenever she saw other little girls. Selena noticed the Empress was frequently distracted. Just then, a maid brought in the small cookies Luana had made by hand. A whole basket full. They were a token of her gratitude to the Empress. The Empress's joy was plain to see, but this stung Selena's eyes. The Empress had never smiled like that in front of her. At this moment, she was blinded by jealousy and rushed forward, knocking over the basket of cookies. Fortunately, the Empress was quick and caught the basket. Only a few pieces fell to the ground and crumbled. This act thoroughly enraged the Empress. She immediately had the maids drag her out. Only then did the girl realize the trouble she had caused, crying and struggling, begging for the Empress's forgiveness. But the Empress only looked at the cookies in her hand with a pained expression. Just because the Empress smiled happily when she received a gift, the Count's daughter became jealous and deliberately knocked over the gift handmade by the princess. Her consequence was to completely enrage the Empress and be mercilessly expelled from the palace. Selena recalled the first time she saw the Empress. The beautiful and elegant Empress stood on high, so radiant and dazzling. From that moment on, she dreamed of one day being like the Empress, the most shining existence. After that, she took every opportunity to make her presence known to the Empress. She knew well of the Empress's fondness for girls after losing her own daughter. She thought that if she could just capture the Empress's heart, she could leap from being a count's daughter to the apple of the Empress's eye. But everything changed with the appearance of that girl. Usually, Selena acted arrogantly, relying on her status as the Empress's niece. Now that she was despised by the Empress, the noble girls, of course, seized the opportunity to laugh at her misfortune, mocking her for having princess syndrome without the princess fate, daydreaming of becoming a princess. The girls deliberately provoked her, saying the Empress treated Princess Luana like her own daughter. This drove Selena mad with jealousy. She turned and left in a rage, hating Luana to the core. The Empress had never smiled at her like that. Why did she favor that girl so much? Her status as the Empress's niece would absolutely not lose to someone with a side branch bloodline. Selena, filled with rage, found her father, the Count, and demanded that he make the Empress drive Luana away. He was shocked by such absurd words, thinking his daughter had gone mad. Meanwhile, the Empress learned that Lilia's side still hadn't found the princess. She decided to have a showdown with her tomorrow and hold her accountable for embezzling the princess's support funds, taking the opportunity to gain custody of the princess. Since the Empress had invited Luana for lunch, Maria, who was unprepared, had to bring out a set of her own childhood clothes for Luana to choose from, planning to have a designer tailor make new ones for her later. Luana, however, thought it was because of her sensitive identity to prevent outsiders from seeing her and starting unpleasant rumors. Maria told Luana that the Empress was incredibly touched after receiving her cookies and couldn't put them down. Although Luana felt it was a bit of an exaggeration, she was still delighted. Luana looked at the dazzling array of beautiful dresses, her eyes overwhelmed with choices. A small pink formal dress caught her eye. "Can I try this one on?" Although the girl was a noble princess, she had been cruelly abused by her mother since childhood and had never worn a single decent piece of clothing. Now that the empress had invited her to lunch, looking at the dazzling array of small formal dresses, Luana chose a pink dress she liked. Maria comforted her, saying she could make do for today and tomorrow she would have many beautiful new clothes made for her. But Luana was penniless. How could she afford them? "Don't worry. His Highness the Crown Prince is a super rich man who holds the late emperor's inheritance. He'll pay for everything." Luana felt a bit embarrassed for always making the Crown Prince spend money. Besides, she was Lilia's daughter. Did she really have the right to step into the empress's palace? The empress is your stepmother, so you're also the empress's daughter. Of course, you can go to the empress's palace. After getting dressed up, Luana looked at her exquisite and beautiful self and could hardly recognize who she was. Was this still the dirty little girl from before? But when Maria brought out a pair of small red leather shoes, Luana shivered. The terrifying, blood-colored scene from her dream flashed before her eyes again. The feeling of her mother plunging a sharp knife into her body was so real. She retreated in terror. Just then, the Crown Prince's voice came out, "If you don't like them, then don't wear them." He reached out and picked the girl up. "I'll carry you today. If you don't walk, you don't need to wear shoes." He turned and walked out the door with the girl in his arms. Arden reminded Maria of the princess's stress reaction upon seeing the shoes. Only then did Maria realize something was wrong with the girl. The Crown Prince asked Luana if she disliked the shoes. "The shoes are beautiful. It's just that the color red is too bright. Then from now on, nothing red will appear in front of you. You're a princess. No one can say anything about you, including Lilia. I will always protect you." The Crown Prince's words gave Luana an immense sense of security. Soon, they arrived at the Empress's palace. Because the Empress held great political power, many people came and went here every day. When they saw the cold and ruthless Crown Prince actually holding a girl, they all started whispering. Luana's golden hair and blue eyes, in particular, became the focus of their heated discussion, feeling the girl's unease in his arms. The Crown Prince's sharp gaze swept over the crowd. The scene immediately fell silent. Just then, Luana noticed a silver-haired man. It turned out to be Duke Esteban. Luana only found him familiar, as if she had seen him somewhere before. At that moment, a maid in the crowd saw Luana. She was terrified. "How is the princess here? I must report to Lady Lilia immediately." A long time ago, there was a beautiful elf. Under the persistent pursuit of the first emperor, the elf became his empress. To please the emperor spent a fortune to build the empress's palace, which stunned the empire. Luana looked at the magnificent palace, utterly amazed. "It's so beautiful. But do elves really exist in this world?" Of course they do, but they never interact with outsiders. They only maintain contact with members of the royal family related to the first empress. When a New Year's celebration comes, I can take you to meet them. Hearing she could meet elves, Luana was super excited. Just then, the maid Talon came to greet them, her attitude friendly and warm. Luana found it strange. Why was everyone around the empress so nice to her, even though she was the daughter of the concubine they hated? For her to be enjoying their kindness so naturally, she felt truly shameless. Sensing the girl's tension, the Crown Prince gently comforted her. Seeing the two of them arrive, the Empress greeted them warmly. Luana leaned close to the Crown Prince's ear and whispered, "What should I say to make the Empress happy?" The Empress was completely charmed by her adorable expression. The Crown Prince directly carried Luana to her seat. When the Empress saw the girl wasn't wearing shoes, she asked for the reason. The Crown Prince simply said that since he was carrying her, there was no need for shoes. Delicious dishes were brought to the table. Luana obediently opened her mouth, waiting for the Crown Prince to feed her. The Empress watched, her heart itching. She also wanted to feed the girl. Just then, a servant rushed in. "Your Majesty, the concubine is here." The Crown Prince's eyes immediately turned cold. This concerned Luana's future. She pleaded with the Crown Prince, hoping she could also be present. The Empress came forward to soothe the girl. Just wait here peacefully for a moment. I haven't seen my daughter in a long time. I want to spend more time with you." The word daughter almost brought Luana to tears. Even her own birth mother had never called her that. Although the situation was grim, she felt incredibly at ease. Could this be the sense of security that comes from being protected? The maid knelt on the ground, trembling, feeling the cold aura emanating from the red-haired woman. Lillian never imagined that her usually timid daughter would dare to run away and seek refuge with her sworn enemy, the Empress. Looking at the documents sent by the Empress, she grew even angrier. Not only did the Empress want to take charge of the princess's future expenses, but she also wanted to reclaim the funds Lilia had previously embezzled. Those maids actually dared to hide the news of Luana's escape. If they had reported it in time, she wouldn't be in such a passive position now. Thinking of this, she couldn't hold back her anger any longer. With a contorted face, she swore to make Luana suffer the most severe punishment. Just then, a man softly called her name. Lilia quickly nestled up to the Emperor, reaching out to stroke the Emperor's eyes, causing the man, who had been slightly lucid, to fall back into a deep slumber. Looking at the man before her, a vicious thought arose in Lilia's mind. Since this girl is so disobedient, I'll just make her as docile as a pet dog, just like her father. Meanwhile, the crown prince was about to go with the Empress to see Lilia. Luana wanted to stop him. She was worried for the crown prince's safety. After all, in her dream, her mother would kill her with her own hands in the future. There was no guarantee she wouldn't do the same to the crown prince. But how could she explain it in a way he would believe? "Little one, are you worried about me? Don't worry, I'm much stronger than you think." Luana still wanted to stop him, but the crown prince had already left. But she couldn't just wait around. In the garden, Lilia complained impatiently, "I've been waiting for so long, and the Empress still hasn't arrived." How rude. The Empress's maid didn't indulge her that you're the one who arrived early. Lilia rolled her eyes at a mere maid dares to be so arrogant. "When my son becomes emperor, I'll raise the Empress's palace to the ground." Just then, the Empress and the crown prince arrived. Lilia's expression soured when she saw the crown prince. The crown prince shot her a disdainful glance. The Empress got straight to the point, asking Lilia her purpose for coming. It turned out Lilia was there for the princess's funds. As Luana's biological mother, she should naturally manage her daughter's expenses herself. The Empress retorted that since Luana was a princess, it was perfectly fine for her, the Empress, to manage them. Lilia was furious. "I'm the one who gave birth to her and raised her." The crown prince sneered, "But it seems Luana didn't want to be born to you." He threw the investigation documents in front of Lilia. "These are the reports on the princess's palace and her health. How do you explain these terrible results? Where did you spend all the princess's funds?" The Empress gave Lilia two choices: either give up custody of Luana or pay back all the embezzled funds. The woman was silent for a moment, then sneered, "An Empress, to be so concerned with someone else's daughter. Aren't you afraid people will gossip that you stole a child who looks similar to your dead daughter as a replacement, because you can't get over her?" Just then, the crown prince noticed a small figure nearby. But when he chased after it, only a small slipper was left on the ground. Luana knew how ruthless her mother was. So when her mother came to the Empress's palace to cause trouble, the little princess, worried for the crown prince's safety, decided to follow secretly. Luana hid under the covers, pretending to be resting. After tricking Maria, she stuffed the doll under the covers and snuck out of the palace herself. She couldn't just stand by and watch the people who had helped her fall into danger. But she had always gone out with the crown prince before. Now, all alone, she was completely lost. After wandering in circles for a long time, Luana was bewildered. She didn't even seem to know where they were meeting. But the thought of the crown prince's meticulous care for her strengthened Luana's resolve to find them. Just then, a water droplet suddenly appeared before her, shining with a dazzling light, floating in the air as if guiding the way. She quickly followed it. Soon, she arrived at the garden where the Empress and Lilia were confronting each other. Luana hid in a corner and overheard their conversation. She happened to hear Lilia accusing the Empress of using Luana as a replacement because she couldn't get over her own dead daughter, and that she herself had been a jinx since she was a child. Anyone who came into contact with her would meet with misfortune. Luana's young heart was dealt a huge blow. To think she had caused such trouble for the Empress and the crown prince. She wandered, heartbroken, into an abandoned palace. Recalling the events since her escape, she wondered if moving into the crown prince's palace was a mistake from the start. Did someone like her who only brought trouble to others really need to exist? That's not true. A voice suddenly spoke. Luana was surprised to see a graceful young woman appear before her. It was the 18-year-old version of herself from her prophetic dream. It seems you don't remember everything from the dream. That's actually for the best. You have already walked a different path. You won't experience the future that I did. Before Luana could understand the meaning of her words, the young woman disappeared. Just then, the crown prince finally arrived. After finding Luana's lost slipper, he had followed her trail here. Seeing the crown prince's worried expression, Luana felt extremely guilty, thinking it was her existence that had caused them so much trouble. But the crown prince's next words made Luana burst into tears. "You are my little sister. It's only natural for you to do as you please." The girl threw herself into his arms and sobbed. The words "little sister" soothed all the anxiety in her heart, making her feel loved and cherished. Perhaps tired from crying, Luana fell into a deep sleep. When she woke up, she saw the crown prince sleeping beside her. She reluctantly called out, "Brother," and fell back into a deep sleep in the crown prince's comforting presence. The girl, who had suffered so much since childhood, was wearing an expensive bracelet. This anomaly caught the crown prince's attention. After extensive investigation and noting the shield and flower pattern on the bracelet, it was confirmed to be from the house of Duke Esteban. The crown prince learned the details of what happened that day. He hadn't expected the duke's son to be as audacious as his old man, giving such a thing to a girl he had just met. Both the crown prince and Arden thought the boy had ill intentions, but Maria started shipping them. At the time, the boy hadn't recognized Luana as a princess, yet he still gave her such a valuable bracelet. This is clearly love. The boy didn't mind Luana's shabby clothes and still gave her gift. Isn't this love at first sight? The crown prince suddenly felt a sense of crisis, as if his precious cabbage was about to be stolen. He told Arden to investigate this young duke thoroughly. "It seems I need to meet that person." Meanwhile, the duke's son, Callian, was reading a book. When he saw his father approaching with a smile, he had a bad feeling that is he going to ask me to attend various banquets again. But this time, the Duke mentioned the bracelet from the other day. Previously, Callian had lied, saying he had lost the bracelet. But the Duke said mysteriously that he knew who had the bracelet. How is that possible? No one should know. I gave the bracelet to that girl. Seeing his son's guilty expression, the Duke understood. It seemed his visit to the Empress was the right move. Earlier, the Duke had proposed to the Empress that his well-behaved and sensible son should become good friends with the princess. But the Empress worried that if the two became too close, it might cause misunderstandings. The Duke looked at the pile of marriage proposals for the princess on the table. He explained that this was a good solution that killed two birds with one stone, because his son was an excellent marriage candidate. If he had a connection with the princess, it would make those with improper designs on the princess give up. Similarly, it would also make those with ideas about his son give up. Anyway, the children are still young. They're just making a friend. The rumors should die down quickly. The Duke claimed it was just to cultivate a pure friendship, but secretly, he hoped the two children would become childhood sweethearts. With the Duke's family support, this was a good opportunity for the princess, whose status was currently awkward, to secure her position. It would also make the overreaching Lilia and her son back off. Poor Callian had no idea about his father's plans. He just felt a chill run down his spine. Luana was lying in her room bored. Maria told her that Arden would be coming later and that they had prepared a special gift. Seeing Maria's excited state, Luana became curious and asked about Maria and Arden's relationship. She had noticed before that whenever Maria looked at Arden, she would smile especially happily, so she thought they must be in love. Maria blushed and was about to say something when Arden and the crown prince walked in. But Luana wasn't drawn to the gift. Instead, she directly asked Arden what he thought of Maria. Under Maria's frantic hinting, a clueless Arden changed the subject. He showed Luana the masterpiece he had prepared, so many that Luana couldn't hold them all. Ever since he received the cookies from Luana, he was certain that the princess's aesthetic tastes were very similar to his own. He felt like he had met a kindred spirit. Luana's face changed. This was bad. Could Arden possibly think that those cookies, which even she found ugly, were actually to her liking? The little princess received a handmade gift from Arden, but she didn't dare to open it. Even the crown prince and Maria were a little scared. After all, Arden's sense of aesthetics was quite unique. They couldn't imagine what kind of earth-shattering, soul-crushing thing he would create if he misunderstood Luana's preferences. Luana wanted to refuse, but seeing Arden's expectant face, She was in a difficult position. In that case, I'll just take a look. The Crown Prince noticed Luana's dilemma and offered to take a look for her first. Really? Luana quickly shoved the gift into the Crown Prince's arms. Even Maria was so nervous, she backed away several times. The Crown Prince prepared himself, took a deep breath, and opened the box. Then he threw it to Maria, telling her to burn it immediately. It was the kind of thing that would shorten your life just by looking at it. Arden was devastated. After all, even his own sister despised his creations. Seeing Arden's dejected look, Luana felt a little sorry. She started to wonder what the gift actually was. Maybe I should just accept it. Absolutely not. It's not good for your mental health. Luana comforted Arden, who was sulking in a corner, explaining that the ugly cookies weren't actually to her liking. They were just a failed attempt. To stop Luana's curiosity, the Crown Prince promised to give her a gift he had gone to great trouble to obtain. Even Brother had a hard time getting it. It must be something very valuable. Can you really give it to me? Maria, however, realized the Crown Prince was probably talking about that book in a way. He's giving a gift based on his own preferences. How is that any different from Arden? Maria was afraid Luana wouldn't be able to handle it. She first asked if she liked to read, to at least prepare her mentally. But Luana said she had never read a book. Maria suddenly realized that a child who had been abused since birth wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn to read. She cheered Luana on. Let me study with you. She then began to write down a list of books, preparing to read fairy tales to Luana every day. Seeing her serious expression, Luana was a bit surprised. She had never imagined someone would read her fairy tales, because her own mother had never done so. Even when she was sick, her mother didn't care about her. The maids even whisper behind her back, "Is this really Lilia's biological child?" Luana debated whether to tell her that she actually knew how to read, but she couldn't just say she learned it in a dream. Soon, several stacks of storybooks were delivered to the room. Today, let's read the story of the founding of the nation by the first emperor and empress. A long time ago, there was a young boy. He had hair that shone like the sun. One day, his village met with misfortune. In a struggle, the boy met a beautiful elf. The elf with blue hair and blue eyes helped the boy defeat the enemy. As time passed, the boy fell in love with the elf, and he built a magnificent palace and proposed to her. The elf accepted the boy's proposal, but at the same time, she made one condition. The story of the first emperor and empress ended abruptly there. Luana felt the story was incomplete, missing many details. In what condition did the first empress propose? Maria explained that it was just a fairy tale, and many parts were made up based on folk legends. But Luana had a strong feeling that the contents of the book were all true, especially the boy's childhood friend who blessed the two with tears in her eyes. Was she really wishing for the future of the emperor and empress? Seeing the little princess had so many questions, Maria planned to read the story again. But Luana said she remembered it all and even began to recite chapters from it. Maria was stunned. She recited it word for word. She randomly selected a few passages from a story, and Luana could recite them all completely. Oh my goodness. She remembered everything after just one reading. To learn to read and understand the meaning in such a short time. Her Highness the Princess is a genius. It seems we need to formally hire a tutor to teach her. Just then, Luana pointed to an illustration in the book and asked, "Where is this?" "This is the Towering Kingdom, located in the desert." The picture shows the kingdom's palace. Luana stared intently at the picture. A strong sense of familiarity washed over her. She seemed to have been there in her dream. Meanwhile, Ashel was speechless about her brother Arden's act of giving a gift to the princess. What kind of mental trauma would the young princess suffer from seeing those things? But the princess didn't see them. Maria took them to be thrown away. "Good job, Sister Maria." But thankfully, she was carefully comforted afterwards, so Arden's spirit wasn't crushed. Ashel had been hearing Arden talk about the princess a lot lately. Even the crown prince and Maria doted on her. This made Ashel curious about the princess. She wanted to meet her. Arden promised to help her pass on the message, but only after they had selected a maid and a knight for Luana. Ashel hadn't realized the little princess's life had been so miserable that she didn't even have her own exclusive maid. That wicked Lilia is truly inhuman. The thought of their father being killed by Lilia filled Ashel with hatred for the woman, but without direct evidence, they could only watch her get away with it. Thinking of this, Ashel became emotional and almost fainted. Arden quickly rushed to support her. but they were both kind-hearted people and didn't blame the little princess because of Lilia. Ashel just felt it was a pity. If she were in good health, could she have become the little princess's exclusive maid? Ever since Ashel fainted in the palace, her health had deteriorated. Although all the doctors said there was nothing wrong with her, she still often felt unwell. After the crown prince learned of Ashel's wish to meet Luana, he promised to take Luana out of the palace to visit her. Arden was happy, but also a little worried. After all, Lilia had tried to assassinate the crown prince before. Would it be dangerous to leave the palace? The crown prince felt that Lilia probably wouldn't be foolish enough to make a move in public. There was just one thing he didn't understand. Even knowing that not all parents love their children, a mother like Lilia, who only saw her daughter as a pawn, was truly rare in the world. Just then, the empress sent for the crown prince to discuss arranging a playmate for Luana. The empress thought Duke Esteban's previous proposal was a good idea. Plus, there were no suitable commoner children in the palace. Only Duke Esteban's young master, Callian, was the best choice. But the crown prince was very reluctant. When he had taken Luana and encountered the duke before, he felt the old man was overly enthusiastic. It turned out he had designs on his son and Luana. The crown prince was worried that having a boy as the princess's friend would lead to unpleasant rumors. But then he remembered that he himself had grown up with Maria and Ashel, so he had nothing more to say. Seeing her son's resentful expression, the empress smiled and said he was just being jealous. But as the princess grows up, it's not quite appropriate for her to always live with the crown prince. The empress planned to have Luana move into the Palace of Glory. The crown prince was surprised. Isn't that the palace mother specially built for my sister before she was born? Is she really willing to let Luana live there? It seemed the empress had come to terms with her daughter's passing. Luana appeared in a dark space. She realized she was dreaming. Just then, a guard suddenly appeared and gave her something to eat. This familiar sweet taste was exactly the same as what she had tasted in her dream before. Luana looked up, and a man smiled at her. "Do you like it?" Before Luana could ask who he was, the man disappeared into nothingness. A strong sense of reluctance made her wake up with a start. She hugged Maria and sobbed quietly. Who was that person? Why did I feel so sad when he disappeared? Duke Esteban was discussing with his wife about sending their son to be the princess's playmate. Now that the formal invitation had been sent, the matter was settled. The Duchess was a bit confused. Previously, when Lilia approached the Duke to have Callian spend more time with the second prince, the Duke refused. Now, he was proactively sending Callian to be the princess's playmate. The Duke explained that the princess's guardian was now the empress. So, befriending the princess had nothing to do with Lilia. After all, no one wanted to be involved with a scheming harem concubine. As for poor Callian, it seemed he still didn't know he had been sold out by his old man. The girl had never attended a single day of school, yet she was a genius with a photographic memory. She could recite a storybook completely after reading it just once. Luana was bored after finishing the book. Maria suggested taking her for a walk in the courtyard. Looking at the beautiful scenery, the girl was exceptionally happy. This was her first time playing in a courtyard. Before, she was always confined to her room by her mother, never seeing the light of day. Maria hugged her, her heart aching. It's just an ordinary little courtyard. I believe your highness will see a much wider world in the future. This was also the beautiful wish Maria's father had for his daughter before he passed away. Luana hugged the quietly sobbing Maria back, gently patting her to comfort her. It turned out Maria's mother had passed away shortly after she was born, and her father had raised her with great care. Later, her father died while on a mission as a royal knight. Maria had always loved her father and was very proud of him. Luana vaguely sensed that the mission might be related to her mother. If her mother had caused Maria's father's death, how could she face her? Instead, it was Maria who comforted her, telling her not to feel burdened. After all, you are the princess everyone loves. From a distance, the crown prince overheard their conversation. In that same mission, Arden's father had also died. Losing the relatives of his close friends one after another made the crown prince feel incredibly guilty. What's more, he was raising the child of their enemy by his side. Wasn't he just taking advantage of their kindness? Although Arden had repeatedly insisted that he never blamed him, the Crown Prince's heart was still very conflicted. Meanwhile, Maria wove a ring from fresh flowers. Luana tried to follow her example, but her attempt was crooked and misshapen. Fortunately, after some effort, she finally succeeded. Just then, Maria wove a larger flower crown and placed it on Luana's head. "You look like a flower fairy." Luana also gave the flower ring she made to her. "I've always been very grateful." Arden saw it and wanted one too. Luana then started playing matchmaker, generously offering to give them a matching pair of rings. Just then, she noticed the Crown Prince's expression was a bit stern. "Is he angry that I picked flowers from the courtyard?" But that wasn't what the Crown Prince was concerned about. He needed to talk to Luana about something concerning her palace. Luana's heart skipped a beat. "Is brother going to send me back to the palace I escaped from?" The little princess, who had been cruelly abused by the concubine, thought she had found protection with the Crown Prince, only to be told she had to move out of his palace. She panicked. Had she done something wrong? Why was he kicking her out? Was he sending her back to her own palace? But she didn't want to go back. That place was her nightmare. The girl grabbed the Crown Prince's clothes and begged, "I won't bother you. Please don't send me back to the princess's palace." The Crown Prince was puzzled by Luana's unusual reaction, so she had misunderstood. "How could I possibly let you go back to that place? I want you to move into a new palace. Have you heard of the Palace of Glory?" Luana had heard of it. In her mind, only very remarkable people could live there. In the past, whenever her mother cursed the Empress, she would mention it, saying the Empress was too sentimental, keeping a palace just for her dead daughter. And the maids, when they spoke ill of her mother behind her back, would say she was overreaching, daring to covet the Palace of Glory. That place was clearly prepared by the Empress for her biological daughter. It belonged to the Crown Prince's own sister. How could she live there? Perhaps in the eyes of the Empress and the Crown Prince, she was just a substitute for that child. The Crown Prince saw the worried look on the girl's face that don't overthink it. The reason for choosing that place is simply because it's well maintained. Whether you want to live there or not is up to you. If you can't decide, let's go take a look together now. The Crown Prince's sincere words deeply moved the girl. To have the good fortune to live with them, she was willing even if she was treated as a substitute. The Crown Prince told Luana that in a few days, he would arrange for a new friend to meet her. Luana knew that because of her mother, her reputation wasn't good. Even the boy who was willing to give a bracelet to a stranger had called her that Lilia's daughter, and he also hated Louis. Would anyone really want to be friends with her? The Crown Prince told Luana to relax, that if anyone dares to be disrespectful to you, tell me. I will definitely settle the score with them. The two soon arrived at the Palace of Glory. Luana was immediately captivated by the magnificent white building. Seeing the girl's delighted smile, the Crown Prince was very pleased. He told her that if there was anything she didn't like, they could tear it down and rebuild it. Luana couldn't bear to see such a beautiful place damaged in the slightest. Seeing a fountain in the garden, Luana ran over excitedly. The moment her hand touched the water, the unfinished fountain actually started gushing water. Luana felt the cool water, feeling incredibly comfortable. But the Crown Prince and Maria were dumbfounded by this scene. The girl was actually surrounded by crystal clear water droplets, playing and frolicking happily. The little girl didn't know that her casual sip of water had actually summoned the water spirit. The Crown Prince and Maria stared, frozen in place, at the girl surrounded by water droplets. It's rare for a human to be able to summon a spirit, even for a princess with royal blood. Only the chosen ones possess the power to control spirits. Maria found it strange. Princess Luana is clearly of the crab bloodline, so how can she summon a spirit? The Crown Prince explained that occasionally, a crab is born with pure ancestral blood, so it's possible. However, it seems that it's not Luana using the power, but the spirit playing with her to make her happy. But this matter must be kept secret for now and not be known by outsiders. Who would have thought that Luana would suddenly fall into the water? When she was pulled out, she grinned sheepishly, saying she was just careless. But the Crown Prince knew it was all the spirit's mischief. Fearing Luana would catch a cold, the Crown Prince took her into the Glory Palace and asked Maria to get clean clothes. Luana felt a little regretful. She didn't expect to be living separately from her brother so soon. She was very reluctant to leave. But when she saw the luxuriously and exquisitely decorated bedroom, she wavered a little. She really loves this room. But the thought of moving here and not being able to see her brother often made Luana conflicted again. The crown prince told her to relax. Their palaces were very close, and she could go back to stay anytime. Besides, the Glory Palace still needed a few months of renovations, so there was no need to be too sad now. Luana was taken away to change her clothes. The crown prince spoke with Adon about the spirit. Years ago, after Ashil fainted for no reason, the empress and the crown prince had investigated the cause. The empress even contacted the spirits. At that time, the spirits speculated that Ashil might have been affected by a type of potato. The crown prince was worried. If Luana wasn't the chosen summoner, could she also have been cursed today? He took out a token. He told Adon to send people to go through all the literature and rumors to see if anyone had ever shown similar symptoms. At this time, the empress was also concerned about Ashil's health. She had always had a suspicion that Ashil's curse was related to Lilia. After all, she is so cruel, even her own daughter. It would be nothing for her to meddle with such dangerous things. Luana returned after changing into clean clothes. The crown prince was taken aback when he saw she was still wearing the same old dress from last time. Are we short on money? Maria frowned helplessly. It's not a lack of money, but a lack of time and manpower. The highly skilled designers in the capital are all fully booked, and they have been busy with other things. They completely forgot about ordering custom clothes for Luana. That's simple. In the name of the imperial family, summon all the designers of the empire. To make new clothes for his sister, the crown prince was going to summon all the fashion designers of the empire to the palace. Maria was astonished. This was the first time the crown prince had used his authority for a personal matter. She was even more excited than the crown prince. She looked with anticipation at the document stamped with the imperial seal. She turned, took Luana's hand, and excitedly told her that she would soon have more new clothes than she could wear. Then she immediately rushed off to post the announcement, full of energy and enthusiasm. The crown prince took Luana's hand and asked if she liked it here. Luana looked at the new palace with delight and asked again and again if she could really live here. Of course, from now on, this place belongs to you. The next day, while Luana was reading alone, Maria suggested finding a professor to teach her. After all, a professional teacher could give her more detailed guidance. With Luana's talent, she would surely become even more outstanding by studying with a teacher. But Luana was somewhat resistant. For some reason, whenever she heard words like teacher and study, she would feel a chill and her mood would sour. Was it related to that premonition dream? But she couldn't remember the content of the dream. She could only make the excuse to wait, that she would study later. When Maria reported this to the crown prince, she expressed her concern. But the crown prince saw at a glance that Maria was actually worried that if Luana wasn't perfect, she would be disparaged by other nobles because of her bloodline. Luana is a princess. She doesn't need to condescend to meet the standards of the nobility. So unless she wants to learn on her own, don't force her. Maria also felt that she had been too anxious and had inadvertently looked down on Her Highness Luana. The crown prince asked about the progress of Luana's new clothes. Maria reported that all the fashion designers from across the country would arrive at the palace tomorrow. A clothing store owner rushed to his shop early in the morning, telling his designer, Jessie, to cancel all of tomorrow's orders. Jessie was bewildered until she saw the royal notice the owner handed her. She then realized the crown prince wanted to have new clothes custom-made for the princess. The 8-year-old princess was finally going to make her debut in the public eye. If the clothes they made could win Her Highness the princess's favor, it would mean a continuous stream of royal orders in the future. Everyone quickly got busy, altering all the previously made clothes to children's sizes. Jessie looked at the notice in her hand. If Her Highness the princess could wear a dress she designed, then one day her wish could come true. The crown prince was puzzled. He was the one who wanted to pick new clothes for his sister. So why was his mother the first one to appear here? You're here to choose a girl's clothes? But what does a man like you know? The empress's merciless taunt struck a nerve with the crown prince. He turned and asked Maria what was going on. Maria was baffled that he has nothing to do with me. Noticing the smiling wet nurse beside the empress, could it be that Adon tipped her off? Adon cried that he was wronged. It was just that the wet nurse happened to see him when he was telling Ashil about it. Meanwhile, Luana was just focused on eating her cake, as if today's events had nothing to do with her. The crown prince was curious. The last time they met the empress, Luana was very nervous. Why was she so at ease today, not even sparing him a glance? At the crown prince's command, all sorts of magnificent dresses were presented one by one. Luana's eyes widened. They were all so beautiful. The first designer grandly introduced his masterpiece, a beautifully crafted blue gown. Seeing that Luana was interested, Maria brought in a few little girls. The crown prince explained that they were to have the children try on the dresses to see how they looked when worn. Luana had a realization. Oh, so they're trying them on for me. The empress asked Luana if she liked it. Luana blurted out, I like it, subconsciously. But the crown prince noticed that Luana hadn't looked at it carefully at all. He quietly complained that it was his mother's uninvited arrival that was making Luana nervous. Luana quickly denied it, saying she wasn't nervous, just curious. Although she felt awkward with the empress last time, she felt unusually relaxed now. Are you really okay? I'm really fine. The empress was very pleased. She raised her hand, wanting to stroke Luana's hair, but the crown prince beat her to it. The empress was speechless. Just as she was about to settle the score with him, she was interrupted by a wave of gasps. Is that really him? The crown prince, who mercilessly drove away the second prince, is being so gentle and affectionate to a concubine's daughter. The murmurs rose and fell, making Luana to divert everyone's attention. Luana pointed randomly. I like that dress. Her Highness the Princess has excellent taste. A pink-haired designer named Bailey squeezed in front of Luana, holding up a glittering gold dress and introducing it enthusiastically. Although this dress looks simple, the fabric is studded with crushed diamonds that will sparkle in the sunlight. Luana was stunned by this dress. The empress and the crown prince were also very satisfied. With Bailey's earnest recommendation, the gown was decisively chosen by the empress. Seeing the order that should have been hers snatched away by someone else, the previous designer gritted her teeth in anger. And equally furious was the concubine, Lilia. She hadn't expected that the designers who were supposed to serve her today had all run off to the crown prince. This beautiful woman was throwing a tantrum just because a designer had ignored her for 3 seconds. She flew into a rage and started wrecking the place. Although the maid was used to her master's volatile and perverse personality, she was still trembling with fear. Lilia caught sight of the maid's arm, which had been scratched by a broken vase. She pretended to comfort her with concern, but was actually threatening her. If she wanted to live, she had to obey her. The maid was terrified, but under the vicious concubine's constant influence, the maid gradually became an accomplice to her crimes. Meanwhile, the empress and the crown prince were still helping Luana choose clothes. The empress's standards were extremely high. Any detail that was even slightly unsatisfactory would be rejected. It was just hard on Luana. At first, she was full of excitement, but she ended up sitting for the better part of the day. Now she felt so tired and bored. Luana looked at the empress, who was in a heated discussion with the designer, and quietly slipped out of the room. Maria told her to go relax in the garden and that she would bring her some snacks later. Luana marveled at the empress's boundless energy as she walked into the garden. But suddenly, there was a faint sound from behind her. Luana thought it was Maria returning, but after calling out several times, there was no response. Something was wrong. Someone approaching her in the palace. Could it be Lilia? Just then, a cry came from behind her. A long-haired knight was pinning a young woman to the ground. The knight didn't forget to bow to Luana, introducing himself as Sebin. Luana had heard the name before. This was the object of affection for many maids, known as the Playboy Knight. Luana noticed the woman pinned to the ground and wanted Sebin to let her go first. But Sebin said this person was sneaky and very dangerous. At Luana's strong insistence, Sebin had to let go. The woman explained she meant no harm. She just saw these yellow flowers and was instinctively drawn to pick them because they were her late mother's favorite flower. But Sebin said she was lying, because this flower only grows in the imperial palace. Unless it was a gift from the royal family, it's impossible for a commoner to have seen it. The woman desperately explained that she wasn't lying. More than fear, she felt the pain of not being believed. Luana believed her words. She let her go despite Sebin's objections. To apologize, she even personally picked a bouquet of flowers and gave it to her. Luana also instructed Sebin to keep this matter a secret. After doing all this, she just felt so tired.